Hepiniz hoş geldiniz. Tanıdık yüzler, yeni yüzler. Hepiniz hoş geldiniz. Şöyle bakıyorum kamerası açık olanlardan kimler burada diye. Çok fazla tanıdığım kişi var tabii haliyle. Evet, hadi başlayalım. Hepiniz hoş geldiniz. Tanıdık yüzler, MSC mezunları var aramızda bol bol bizim topluluğumuzdan. Ve yeni yüzler var öz-şefkatle ilgili. Hepiniz hoş geldiniz. Önce teknik, çok kısa 2 tane duyurum var daha önce de yaptığım. Birincisi, eğer Türkçe dinlemek istiyorsanız ekranınızı büyük ekran yapın ve sağ alt köşeden Interpretation'dan Korece kısmını seçin. Böyle bir dünya işareti var. İkinci duyurum da Sayın Doktor Kristin Neff'e yöneltmek istediğiniz sorularınız için okul koordinatörü Merve Can adresine chatten yazabilirsiniz. Mektuplarınız kendisine. Biz School of Compassion olarak Türkiye'de şefkat ve öz şefkatin doğru bir şekilde anlaşılması, yaygınlaşması ve daha şefkatli bir kültür için çalışıyoruz. Bu kapsamda yıl boyunca Compassion Talks etkinlikleriyle bu alanın dünyada öncü isimlerini, bilim insanlarını davet ediyoruz. Bugün de açıkçası en büyük heyecanı duyduğumuz, bizim için çok kıymetli bir hocamız aramızda. Ve şimdi kendisini kısaca tanıtacağım, ondan sonra da sahneyi ona bırakacağım. Bu akşam Türkiye'ye ilk kez gelen Doktor Neff'le beraberiz. Kristin benim hocam, çünkü ben de bir Mindful Self Compassion eğitmeniyim aynı zamanda. Kendisi gerçek bir öz-şefkat duayeni, o yüzden çok heyecanlıyız. 15 yıldan daha fazla bir süre önce öz-şefkat üzerine dünyada araştırmaları ilk başlatan kişi ve öz-şefkat araştırması alanında öncü. Öz-şefkatle ilgili sayısız konuşma yaptı, çok sayıda akademik makale, kitap bölümü yazdı. Kendisinin Öz-şefkat, kendine karşı nazik olmanın kanıtlanmış gücü kitabı kısa bir süre içerisinde değerli arkadaşım Ebrar Güldemler'in maharetli çevirisiyle Türkçe'de yayınlanacak. Bunun için de çok heyecanlıyız. Diyojen yayınlarından yakında çıkacak. Takip ederseniz bizler de muhakkak paylaşırız. Sayın Neff, meslektaşı Dr. Chris Germer'le birlikte dünya çapında binlerce öğretmen tarafından öğretilen, benim de eğitmeni olduğum ve Türkiye'de çok mutluyum ki şu an yüzlerce mezunumuz olan Mindfulness Temelli Öz-Şefkat programının yaratıcısıdır. Ve en son kitabında kadınları merkeze alarak öz kabul ile gereken dönüşümü yaratma yeteneği arasında nasıl denge kurulacağına odaklanmaktadır. Kişisel olarak ben bu kitapla ilgili çok heyecanlıyım. Kitabın adı Sert Öz-Şefkat. Kadınlar seslerini çıkarmak, güçlerini geri almak ve serpilmek için şefkati nasıl uygulayabilir? İsmi bile beni heyecanlandırıyor. Bu çok önemli kitabı da en kısa sürede dilimizde okumak istiyoruz. Bunun için çalışmalarımıza başladık. Sayın Kristin Neff şu anda Austin, Texas Üniversitesi'nde eğitim psikolojisi doçenti olarak görev yapmaktadır. Daha say bitmez ama burada keseceğim ki Kristin'den daha uzunca bir süre beslenebilelim diye. Kristin, bu daveti kabul ettiğin için ve School of Compassion olarak biz Türkiye'de ses çıkarmaya, şefkatin sesi olmaya çalışıyoruz. Bu sesi güçlendirdiğin için, burada olduğun için çok çok minnettarız ekip olarak. Tüm ekip arkadaşlarıma hazırlıklar için teşekkür ediyorum ve kalpten kocaman bir hoş geldin diyerek sahneyi sana devrediyorum.
Thank you, Seema. I'm very happy to be here and to meet with you all. Yeah, I think it is my first time speaking in Turkey, so I'm very privileged. So let me just tell you a little bit about how I got involved in researching self-compassion and eventually teaching it and creating workshops. I didn't come up with the idea. Actually, I wish I had, but I didn't come up with the idea. I actually learned about self-compassion in my last year of graduate school. I was doing my PhD in California. And basically, it was a very stressful time in my life. I had just gotten a divorce and I was feeling a lot of stress about that, a lot of feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt. And I was also under a lot of stress work-wise. Would I get a job after getting this PhD? I had no idea. And I'd heard that mindfulness meditation was good for stress. So I went to a local mindfulness group to learn how to meditate. And really, much to my surprise, the woman leading the course talked about self-compassion. She actually followed the tradition of a teacher named Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a Zen master. And he talks a lot about self-compassion. So even before I learned how to meditate or I understood what mindfulness was, I got an insight into self-compassion. And so she talked about the fact that not only do we need to give compassion and understanding and kindness to others, we also need to include ourselves in the circle of compassion. We need to turn that lens of kindness inward. And so I tried it out. Actually, the night I went home, it was funny. I had never even thought of it before. Like, I was a pretty compassionate person to others, but I'd never really even considered that I could give myself that same warmth and support and kindness that I usually, gave to my friends. So I tried it out, and I was just really astonished by the immediate difference it made in my ability to cope with all the stress I was undergoing. And so I knew this was something special. And then I eventually did get a job at the University of Texas, where I am now. And then I decided to research it. So I'm going to talk a little bit. What I'm going to do today in today's talk, just so you know what's coming, is at first I'm just going to review some of the basic ideas of self-compassion, what it is, and also what it's not. And some of you already know this. Some of you may know less about it. And then I'm going to talk about my new work on fierce self-compassion, both fierce self-compassion and tender self-compassion, and how we need to balance them. And then at the end, I'm actually going to do a practice where you yourself can feel what it's like to call up these two energies of fierceness and tenderness for yourself. And then at the very end, we'll have some time for questions. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen because I have some slides for you. Okay. So again, the easy way to think about what self-compassion is it's just doing a U-turn, right? Giving yourself the same kindness, care, and concern you would normally show to a friend. And actually, most people, if you ask them to compare how they treat themselves versus how they treat their friends, most people, the vast majority, my research shows, are much kinder to other people than they are to themselves. In fact, some people are kinder to the people they don't like very much than they are to themselves. So often we're actually our own worst enemy. So again, self-compassion turns that around and we start to give ourselves more kindness. But it's more than kindness alone. So when I first started publishing about self-compassion, which is almost 20 years ago at this point, I published the first paper on it in 2003. I realized that I had to really define clearly what self-compassion is because I wanted to research it. And so it not only involves kindness, but also two other elements which are really important, which is mindfulness and common humanity. So let me just explain a little bit what each of these elements look like. So mindfulness is really at the foundation of self-compassion. So you're probably familiar with mindfulness. Mindfulness is the ability to be with what is, to pay attention to what is in the present moment with acceptance as opposed to resisting it. And so we need to be mindful of our pain in order to open our hearts to ourselves. If we just ignore the fact that we're suffering, if we just keep on doing what we're doing, it would be like if your friend was trying to call you and say, hey, I've got a problem. And you just said, hey, I'm sorry, I'm too busy. I don't have time for you right now, right? That's not going to work. In order to have compassion for anyone, we need to be willing to open up and pay attention to the fact that pain is present. This is difficult. And so with ourselves, we need to pause and realize wow, this is really hard for me right now. What do I need in this moment? And mindfulness also has a balance. It's a sense of balance to mindfulness. In other words, we don't ignore our pain. We don't, pretend that we're happy even when we aren't. At the same time, we don't get fused with our pain. We don't get lost in it. Because sometimes when we're just lost in the story of, oh, this is so horrible, and we're just kind of, in a melodrama about it, then we also don't have the space to step outside of ourselves and say, what can I do to help in the moment? So mindfulness, the first step of being self-compassionate is to be mindful of the fact that we're having a hard time. And by the way, just so you know, the word compassion, the reason it's always focusing on suffering is compassion by definition is focused on the alleviation of suffering. So there's other states of being which are more positive, but compassion is all about how do we relate to suffering. So self-compassion is how do we relate to our own suffering. So again, first we're mindful of our suffering. And then again, then this is where the self-kindness comes in after the mindfulness. We give ourselves kindness, warmth, and support as opposed to harshly judging ourselves. I mean, sometimes we may be aware that we're feeling badly, but we may blame ourselves for it. And so for it to be a compassionate response, the idea is we're understanding. We may realize that it's due to something we've done, but we don't mercilessly just judge ourselves or criticize ourselves or call ourselves names. We give ourselves support, kindness, and understanding. Also, very important to self-compassion, and really the compassion generally, is the desire to alleviate suffering. In the world of science, most people actually don't define compassion as an emotion. Rather, it's a type of motivation, right? It's the motivation to do something. And in this case, it's the motivation to alleviate suffering, the motivation to help in some way. So, for instance, we know if you look at the brains of people who are experiencing compassion, the motor cortex is activated. There's this desire to actually act, to help in some way. And then very important, what makes self-compassion different than self-pity, for instance, is the sense of connectedness that's inherent to self-compassion. So actually the word compassion, passion in Latin means to suffer, but cum means with. So whenever we feel compassion, we don't feel sorry for people. We don't feel sorry for ourselves. We're just recognizing that all people are imperfect. All people make mistakes. All people fail. And also we recognize that all people have imperfect lives, right? Everyone struggles. Some people struggle more than others, and that's a reality that we can acknowledge. But nonetheless, all people have difficulty in their life. In fact, that's what defines being human. And so with self-compassion, we recognize this. Even if, our form of suffering is we've failed miserably or we made some big mistake that we regret, we instead of feeling like something has gone wrong, right? And think about that. Don't we normally react that way when we make a mistake or we get that call from the doctor who says you've got this health problem? Our immediate reaction is something has gone wrong. This isn't supposed to be happening, as if what's supposed to be happening is perfection. And if perfection isn't happening, something has gone wrong, right? And so again, logically, we know this isn't true, but emotionally, we react this way. And what this does is it's very, very damaging because not only are we struggling, not only are we feeling bad, but we also feel all alone. We feel isolated. We feel abnormal. And that makes things that much worse. And so with self-compassion, when we remember that we aren't alone, it's not just us who's imperfect. It's not just me who's experiencing this. It actually creates a sense of connectedness that really helps support us in a moment of struggle. So there's a lot of research now on self-compassion. At the last count, there were over 3,200 studies focusing on self-compassion. So there's quite a lot. Back in 2003, there weren't any, right? So back in 2003, I created a scale to measure self-compassion, and again, a theory article. And for the first few years, it was pretty much just me and my graduate students doing research. And now it's an entire field of study, which is so exciting. And so the bottom line is that self-compassion is strongly linked to well-being. We know that either people who are just naturally more self-compassionate or who are trained to be more self-compassionate, we find that they have less depression, less stress, less anxiety. They're less likely to feel shame. They're less likely to feel badly, for instance, about their body. They're less likely to experience chronic pain. And actually, they're less likely to, for instance, contemplate suicide as a response to their pain. So self-compassion reduces negative states of mind. At the same time, it's strongly linked to positive states of mind, things like happiness, hope, optimism, life satisfaction, feeling good about your body. It's also linked to greater physical health because, of course, the mind and the body are connected. So the calmer and less stressed we are mentally, the calmer and less stressed our body is, and that leads to physical well-being. And really, self-compassion is a little bit unusual in that it equally reduces the negative and increases the positive. And that's because compassion is aimed at the negative. It's aimed at suffering. But instead of trying to sugarcoat things and say everything's fine when they aren't, by opening our hearts to our own suffering, we're actually generating the positive emotion of compassion. Compassion feels good. It feels good to feel kind. It feels good to feel connected to other people. So we're holding this negative emotion in this positive emotion without pretending that negative emotion isn't there. And that's one of the reasons it's so strongly linked to well-being. There's also, luckily, a lot of research that counters or disproves a lot of the common misgivings about self-compassion. Most people actually don't know that self-compassion is a good thing. There's a lot of untruths about what self-compassion is, again, that research disproves. And so I'll just talk about them briefly here. A lot of people think that self-compassion is weak. And I think it's because compassion is associated with nurturing, kind of a soft energy in most people's minds. I'm going to talk about this later. It's not all it is. But most people think of self-compassion as something that's soft, and therefore they think that it's going to make them weak, that if they're kind to themselves, they'll be weakened. And what we know from the research is that self-compassion is one of the absolutely most powerful, strong sources of coping and resilience that we have available to us. So whether you're dealing with something like going through a divorce or, raising special needs children, or even we have a lot of research with combat veterans who've been to war. And we know that people who've gone through something very traumatic like a war, if they're actually kind and supportive toward themselves about what they experienced, they're much less likely to develop post-traumatic stress syndrome. They're much less likely, for instance, to use alcohol as a way to escape their pain. They're much more able to function. So again, when you go through real difficulties in your life, think about it. What voice do you want inside your head? A voice that's an ally, that has your back, that's here to help, or a voice that's cutting you down and that's shaming you? Now, a voice that's critical of you is not going to make you stronger, it's going to make you weaker. Having your own back, supporting yourself, makes you stronger. Another common belief is that it's selfish, right? So people think that somehow there's only a limited supply of compassion. So if I give compassion to myself, I'm going to have less left over to give to other people. It doesn't work that way, right? So what the research clearly shows is the more compassion that you aim inward, the more compassion you give yourself, the more resources you have to give others. Okay, so if you're more self-compassionate, what we find is people, for instance, are more giving and caring in relationships. And by the way, it's not like the people who say this, their partners say that when their partners are self-compassionate, they're judged to be more caring, more giving, more intimate, less controlling. They're also more forgiving. They're more able to take others' perspectives. So they're also less likely to burn out after giving to others. They're more likely to be able to sustain giving in the long run. So self-compassion isn't selfish. It actually gives you what you need to be able to care for others. Another belief is that it's self-indulgent, right? That, in other words, being kind to yourself just means going easy on yourself, right? Giving yourself a break. When giving yourself, sometimes what we need to do to care for ourselves is to go easy on ourselves. If we're working way too hard, sometimes we need to, relax a little bit to care for ourselves. But if we do that so much that it becomes self-indulgent, in other words, we like that cupcake, it feels good, but we eat so many cupcakes that, it starts to harm our health, that's actually not compassionate. That's not alleviating suffering, that's causing suffering. So what we know from the research is self-compassionate people are always interested in their long-term health and well-being. So people, they eat better, they exercise more, they go to the doctor to take care of themselves, that they're more likely to, for instance, practice safe sex. So again, if you care about yourself with compassion, you aren't going to do things that harm you that are self-indulgent. But what we find in the research, and this has mainly been done in the West, so we don't know if this generalizes to Eastern cultures. By the way, the other research I've been talking about has been done all over the world. It's not just done in the West. There's research done in Asia and other parts of the world. There's research done in Turkey in particular. There's research done all over the world about this, and we get the same good findings. But in the West, what we know is that the number one block to self-compassion, the number one reason people aren't self-compassionate, is the belief that it will undermine their motivation. People think that in order to reach their goals, right, in order to be motivated, they need to be harsh on themselves. They need to actually punish themselves if they fail so that they will be motivated to keep trying. And actually, this used to be a common parenting philosophy. Parents used to think that, in order for their children to succeed in life, they needed to beat them if they didn't do what they needed to do in order to motivate them. And what we know from the research very clearly is, yeah, it kind of works. It will motivate you to do what you need to do. But in the long run, it's actually not helpful at all. In the long run, what happens, especially if you criticize yourself a lot, is first of all, it's going to make you afraid to fail. If you know that if you try something risky and that if you fail, that you're going to beat yourself up, you're going to be really hard on yourself, then you're going to want to try new things. Right. It also means that when you do fail, you get filled with shame. You just feel like a total failure. And when you're filled with shame after failing, you can't learn from your failure. Okay? So you can't learn from your failure. It also makes you very anxious about failing. And when you have a lot of anxiety, that actually makes it harder for you to succeed. And so what self-compassion does is self-compassionate people, they also are motivated. They also want to succeed, but not because they're inadequate, right? Not because they feel they aren't good enough unless they succeed, right? The bottom line is, I'm okay as I am, but I want to succeed because I care about myself. I want to be well. I want to be happy. So it's it's a positive form of motivation. Just like a good parent hopefully motivates their child. A good parent hopefully doesn't say to their child who fails, I hate you, you're horrible. You hope not. That, to my mind, that wouldn't be a good parent. A good parent says to their child, hey, it's okay that you failed. Everyone fails. I love you anyway. But I want you to succeed because I want you to achieve your dreams in life. How can I help? How can I encourage you? How can I support you to reach your goals? And that's really the type of motivation that comes with self-compassion. And it's a lot more effective. We know that from the research. Okay, so now I want to talk about the two sides of self-compassion that I'm calling tender and fierce self-compassion. And these two sides of self-compassion actually map on to yin and yang. And hopefully most of you are familiar with this yin and yang symbol. It comes from Chinese philosophy. And the idea is that there are two fundamental energies in life. There's a yin energy, which is represented by the dark part of that circle, which is more of a tender, soft, kind of yielding, open, accepting, nurturing energy to life. It's considered the moon, right? The dark, the nighttime, the moon. And there's also the yang energy of life, which is more of a fierce, powerful, active, hard, kind of goal-oriented energy. And that's the white part of the circle, and the other symbol is the sun, right? And so both of these are essential aspects of being, and they're also both essential aspects of self-compassion. So tender self-compassion is the nurturing aspect of self-compassion. This is what allows us just to be with ourselves and accept ourselves as we are, right? So we kind of comfort ourselves when we're hurting. We reassure ourselves that we aren't alone, and we validate our pain. And so it's this kind of gentle, open, tender energy of acceptance that actually allows us to heal. And so the metaphor for this side of self-compassion, again, going back to the parenting metaphor, is like a parent who rocks and cradles their crying child. You know, that baby may be screaming its head off, but you still love that child, and you just hold that child. You don't like drop that child. You hold that child. You let that child know that it's okay, that you love it. You rock it. You soothe it. And eventually the child starts to calm down. And so this is really where a lot of the healing power of self-compassion comes from. But, you know, if your source of suffering is maybe you are on the second floor of a building and the big fire has broken out on the floor underneath you, you don't want to just like be with yourself in that moment. You want to take action, right? You may need to do something brave, like jump out the window to help yourself. And this is the fierce side of self-compassion. This is really the powerful, action-oriented part of self-compassion. And so if tender self-compassion, the metaphor is mother, the metaphor for fierce self-compassion is mama bear, right? So if you want to see a fierce force of nature, you try threatening mama bear's cubs, and she will rise up, and like this incredible energy will arise. And so self-compassion sometimes is fierce. Sometimes we need to protect ourselves. If someone is maybe crossing a boundary, or if someone's treating us unfairly, or if someone's threatening us in some way, or I think of in some ways like the Me Too movement, this whole rising up of women saying no to sexual harassment. This is mama bear self-compassion. This is saying no, no, it's not okay. I'm going to draw my line in the sand. That is a really important part of self-compassion. Also providing for ourselves. So, mama bear, not only will she protect her cubs, but she may just, walk that hundreds of miles to find food to feed her cubs. So also we need to do that for ourselves sometimes. Instead of us just giving to others, we need to say, my needs count too, right? I need to take action in my life to make sure that I am happy and fulfilled. This isn't instead of helping others. This is in addition to helping others, but we need to include ourselves and really work to meet our own needs as well as those of others. And then finally, again, motivating change, which I just talked about. The ability to motivate change when we're in a situation that's not healthy for us is a really important part of being kind to ourselves. So what happens when these fierce and tender energies aren't in balance, or you might say when yin and yang aren't in balance and we don't have both, is self-compassion can become what we like to call a near enemy. A near enemy is a term that's used in Buddhist practice, and it basically refers to something that seems similar. That's why they're near, but actually they're actually not the same at all, which is why they're an enemy. And so let me explain what I mean. So tender self-compassion, right, that kind of accepting, yielding energy, if it's not balanced with fierce self-compassion, can become complacency, right? We just kind of, and there's actually been a criticism of the mindfulness movement. I don't know if it's a fair criticism or not, but in other words, it's not enough for us just to sit on our meditation cushions and to be well and to be peaceful, because there's a lot of injustice in the world. There's a lot of problems in the world. There's global warming, there's racial injustice, there's gender injustice, there's inequality of wealth inequality. In order for us to actually alleviate suffering, we can't just accept what is. We also have to work sometimes very bravely and courageously to change what is. And in order to do that, we need fierce as well as tender self-compassion. On the other hand, if we're fierce but not tender, right? If we're all about change and striving to make things better and have like this mama bear energy, but we don't have that soft, loving energy as well, that can turn into hostility, right? We'll just hate the people causing the problems, right? We're just kind of get angry and aggressive, and that's also not alleviating suffering. That's actually adding more suffering into the world. So we need both energies to be in balance in order to be whole and to be effective agents of change. And so, my work recently is really about how do we find balance between these two energies of fierceness and tenderness. And again, these two energies have to be aimed inward toward ourselves. We need our own fierce protection. We also need tender self-acceptance. And they also need to be aimed outward. We need to accept people who are maybe different than us and accept that we can't control everything. At the same time that we need to try to change what we can. There's some barriers to finding balance, however. And those barriers are gender role socialization. I mean, there's a lot of barriers, but a big barrier is gender role socialization. So in most cultures around the world, I mean, there are differences in terms of how intense gender socialization is, but in most cultures around the world, girls are socialized to be tender, to be nurturing, right? To be soft. Boys are socialized to be fierce, to be strong. They can get angry, and they can be warriors. And part of the reason for this kind of historically is because women were given the task of raising the children in the home, and men were given the task of fighting wars and also going out and making money in business. And so what happened is we kind of split these two essential energies that are both needed. We've split them by gender. We've given women the role of being the holders of tenderness and nurturing, and men the task of being the holders of this fierceness and this action in the world. What the problem with that, though, is that, first of all, let me talk about some of the problems. The problems for women, and by the way, I'm talking about gender roles. I mean, any particular person who identifies as a woman is going to have a different relationship to their gender roles. So I'm just talking about the roles that society puts on women. What happens when you point to women, if you just focus about being tender but not fierce, is first of all, there's a lot of focus on meeting others' needs, but not meeting the self's needs, right? So the people who have the biggest problem with self-compassion being selfish is actually women. They feel they aren't entitled to meet their own needs because their whole value is based in meeting the needs of others. And so there's kind of an imbalance for women when there's almost too much focus on meeting others' needs and not enough focus on meeting one's own needs. There's also, it can be difficult for women to get in touch with their mama bear energy. It's okay when you use it to protect your children, but can you use it to protect yourself, right? Society says it's not okay for a woman to be angry. We don't like angry women. We don't like fierce women because the traditional woman is supposed to be soft and sweet and nurturing. And I'll talk about in a moment, that's a problem because it means it's harder for women to say no and to draw those boundaries. It also disempowers women because if all the power is in the fierce gender role and women aren't allowed to be fierce, that means they don't have access to power. And so one of the consequences is that this is ironic. Even though compassion is considered a female thing, it's part of the nurturing role to others, women have less self-compassion than men because they aren't allowed to turn that compassion inward. Right? So these are some of the, you might say that the problems for women. The one plus side, however, is that women are much more accept the ideal of self-compassion as a good thing. So if you look on this call and almost any talk I give and almost any workshop I teach, the vast majority of people on the call are women. And that's because we're very familiar with compassion. We understand the power of compassion, and therefore we're more open to learning self-compassion, even though in general we tend to be less self-compassionate. Men, however, also suffer from this split. Okay, so with men, there's a focus on strength and dominance. And in some ways that serves men because that gives them more power in society. So that's, one of the reasons men have more power than women is because they've been socialized to be more powerful. However, it also harms men because it makes them uncomfortable with tenderness, right? So, men are ridiculed for being too tender or for being too soft. The traditional male gender roles, really fierce, almost like there's a term macho in English. And that harms men because that cuts them off from the more tender emotions. It makes them afraid of being vulnerable. And when you can't access your tender emotions, remember, tender self-compassion is what allows us to heal from our emotional wounds. And if men are cut off from this tender energy, that means they have less ability to heal their own emotional pain, which also harms men. Okay. And it also, one of the problems from my point of view is it means, the men on this call, really, I respect you so much because that's really a brave action going against gender role socialization. But a lot of men are afraid to do something like hear a talk on self-compassion because, again, the idea is that men aren't supposed to be compassionate. That's a female thing. And so this, given that we know from the research that self-compassion is one of the most powerful sources of health and mental health and well-being, the fact that men feel uncomfortable with learning it also harms men. So I think there's a lot of problems, and just to continue with the problems with this, with what I call the gendering of self-compassion. In other words, splitting it, giving one side of self-compassion to men and the other side to women. First of all, it constrains or inhibits authenticity. Now, every single person, but just by their very nature, by being a human being, has both a yin and yang side, has both fierceness and tenderness inside. And the way each person expresses it is going to be unique, right? There's a million different ways to express these two sides of ourselves. And when we stuff people into little boxes, that inhibits our ability to be our true selves. It also means that we aren't balanced and whole by ourselves as individuals. What happens is people try to gain wholeness in relationships, especially heterosexual relationships. We try to get this completeness by being a couple, by being a unit. And sometimes that works, that there are some problems with that, but what happens if you aren't in a relationship? Or what happens if you split up? Or what happens if you're in a bad relationship and you want to leave? Or what happens if your partner dies, right? So if we're putting our health, if we're making our health and well-being and our wholeness dependent on being a couple, that really limits us. When in fact, wholeness is to be found within. Okay, so that's one problem. Another problem. Also, the backlash people face, the fact that women, the reason we still don't get a lot of female leaders, we have a few, but we still don't have a lot, is because people don't like strong, powerful women. They actually, there's a lot of research that shows people prefer women who are a little less powerful, who are a little less competent, because they're less threatening, and they assume that a less powerful woman is more nurturing, and people like nurturing women. And so that creates problems for women, gaining powerful positions in life. And also, like I said, it's not just women who are harmed, and men are harmed as well by being ridiculed for being too tender. And so it really just contributes to power imbalance and injustice. Okay. And by the way, my new book, which I do hope gets published in Turkey, called Fierce Self-Compassion, How Women Can Harness Kindness to Speak Up, Claim Their Power, and Thrive, is really all about, it's written especially for women, because the book for men needs to be, tender self-compassion, how men can benefit from the tender quality of kindness to thrive. So it's a slightly different book. Okay. So how does this play out in different areas of our lives? So again, one area especially for women, but for all people, women tend to be caregivers more often than men, but a lot of men are caregivers for their children, for their elderly parents, sometimes for their partners. One of the problems, again, with not having both energies available, and also with being more compassionate to others than with oneself, is that for women, right, it means that there's a bigger discrepancy between how we treat others and how we treat ourselves. The men are also more compassionate to others than themselves, but just a little bit more compassionate to others than themselves. Women are a little less compassionate than men, but a lot more compassionate to others. And again, this goes back to gender role socialization. But what happens is, if we aren't balanced, if the compassion isn't going in as well as out, is we become drained and depleted. So if you look at, for instance, nurses, healthcare workers, teachers, people in the caregiving professions, burnout is a huge problem. Right. So when we're only trained about how to give to others, and we aren't trained about how to give to ourselves as well, you aren't going to be able to last. You aren't going to be able to sustain caregiving over time. And so what we know is when we learn about self-compassion, especially in both its fierce and tender forms, is there's a lot of research that shows it prevents burnout. So when you're caring for someone and you're just feeling, overwhelmed and you're feeling exhausted, by resourcing yourself, it actually allows you to be a better caregiver. And so again, it's about the balance that's necessary. It's not one or the other. I also want to talk a bit about self-compassion and anger. And this can be very confusing for people. And again, especially for women, because women are so socialized not to get angry. In fact, there's research that shows that a man who gets angry, people believe him more. They think he's like passionate and committed. If a woman gets angry, people believe her less. They think she's crazy, because women aren't supposed to get angry. So there's a big gender difference here. But nonetheless, anger can be a form of fierce self-compassion. I think sometimes, especially in the mindfulness world, in the meditation world, people only think of anger as a problematic emotion, something we're just supposed to learn to get over. In fact, anger can be very constructive, and anger can be harnessed in the service of compassion. So there are a lot of gifts to anger, a lot of benefits we can get from being angry. First of all, when we're angry, we become very focused, right? So typically we're angry because someone is harming us in some way or harming someone else, or there's some injustice being done, or someone is being threatened. If we aren't angry, we often ignore a problem. Right? So you might say for years and years and years, sexual harassment, it was a problem, but people weren't getting angry about it. They just thought, oh, that's how men are. And so when people weren't getting angry about it, then the problem just went unaddressed. We were complacent about it. It took a lot of women getting angry about it, saying this is not okay, marching in the streets, literally, that actually created the focus on sexual harassment. The same is going with the race relations, at least in the United States. So when we're angry about a problem or an injustice, what it does is it helps us to maintain focus on it and to see it clearly. This is a problem that needs to be addressed. It also energizes us. So anger and fierce compassion generally, that angry young energy is actually very energizing. It actually motivates us to act. It gives us the energy to act. So think about it. When you're feeling bad, maybe you're sad, you're kind of slumping, but when you're angry, your back is tall. Right? When you're angry, you're just like, you got all this energy shooting up your spine and you know what's right. But that energy is actually a really helpful thing to have, especially when you're trying to correct an injustice. Another gift of anger is it suppresses the fear response. Oftentimes we're afraid to take action. We're just too afraid that, it's going to be scary for us in some way. We may be harmed. And so when you're really angry, it makes you brave. Right? Hopefully not stupid brave, hopefully not so much that you act, and I'll talk about that in a moment. We don't want to act in a way that's stupid. We want to act wisely. But when we're really angry, it makes us be less afraid, which actually gives us more bravery to act, to change a situation. When we feel anger, it also communicates that something is wrong, not only to you, but to the person you're angry at. Right? And so people pay attention when they're angry. It's, oh, there's anger. Something's wrong. What is it? And that's actually useful when you want to call attention to a problem. And then also it provides a sense of power. So these are all gifts of anger that we don't want to overlook. And again, that's why I really think it's so important for women to learn to be comfortable with their anger, to actually own their anger, to not be afraid of their anger. And by the way, mama bear, when mama bear is angry, that's actually a female energy. I mean, men have mama bear as well, but it's not actually just a man thing. It's almost especially a woman thing, right? So women, from my point of view, need to be able to claim their anger, to own their anger, to use their anger in order to tackle a lot of these challenges we have in the world today: sexism, racism, global warming, wealth inequality, right? We're going to have the gift of anger if we're going to do the work we need to in the world. And men as well, men and women. But of course, as we know, not all anger is good. So research shows that there is destructive anger, but also constructive anger. And so what we want to do is we want to harness constructive anger to end injustice, to alleviate suffering. So constructive anger alleviates suffering. Destructive anger causes suffering. And that's part of how you know that they're different. But also, let me just break down in a little more detail the features of each. So when we're angry in a destructive way, what happens is instead of focusing on eliminating an injustice or protecting from harm, it starts to become personal, right? We focus on the person causing the harm as opposed to the harm itself, right? We become hostile. We might be aggressive. We may call someone names. We may even become physically violent. And so if we're harming a person, we actually aren't alleviating suffering. If we're ending a threat and we're protecting, we are alleviating suffering. So constructive anger is aimed at, and I'll do both at the same time. With constructive anger, we're focused on the threat, not the person. With destructive anger, it's personal. We're focusing on the person. Destructive anger is often ego defensive. In other words, we feel personally offended. We take things really personally. Our ego becomes threatened in some way. And when we become personally threatened and we're defending our ego, then we stop seeing so clearly, right? We're just kind of lashing out, trying to defend ourselves. We can't really think rationally anymore. With constructive anger, it's not personal. Our own ego isn't involved. I'm not angry because you've insulted me. I might be angry at that an injustice has occurred and I may want to repair that injustice, but it's really not about me personally. It's more about the fact that harm has been done or injustice has been done, in general. Destructive anger seeks to retaliate for harm, right? You hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. Constructive anger seeks to repair harm. It's all about fixing things so that the harm won't continue. Destructive anger is reactive and doesn't see clearly. It's just kind of like white rage. We're just lashing out blindly. Constructive anger is very clear. It sees very clearly. Okay, I'm angry. What's the best way to use my anger for best effect? And then also, one of the problems with destructive anger, sometimes we get angry, if we kind of go to the fierce anger, because we don't want to feel our pain. And so anger is kind of used as a shield to shield our awareness from the pain. And when that happens, that's actually not helpful because the pain often means that there's wounds that need to be held and tended to with tender self-compassion. So when anger is like a shield or a block, just, really that I not only shields from other people, we want to shield ourselves from other people from wounding us, but we don't want to cut off our own awareness from our wounds. We want to be angry. At the same time, we want to be aware that there's hurt underneath the anger that needs to be addressed. And so constructive anger is actually very purposeful. It prevents more harm from being done. At the same time, it creates space to realize, okay, I'm really angry and I'm hurt. And the hurt underneath the anger also needs to be addressed. And again, that tends to be addressed more with the tender self-compassion. So again, balancing fierce and tender self-compassion is actually what allows our anger to be constructive as opposed to destructive. Okay, so that's a lot of talking. Now I want to teach a practice. And the practice is called breathing fierce and tender self-compassion. I'll stop my share now. You don't need to see my slide. And so this is a practice where we actually use the in-breath and the out-breath as a vehicle for generating both this fierce compassion, this fierce yang energy, and this tender yin energy. And we're going to first focus on each separately, and then we're going to work on integrating them. And then we're going to try to we'll see what happens in the end. I'll take you through a little journey. So I see some of you are meditators because the second I said meditate, I saw people adjusting themselves in their seats. So yeah, please get in a comfortable position. So I'll do this for between 20 and 30 minutes so that we have time for questions. And if you want, you may want to close your eyes. You don't have to close your eyes, but it helps to go inward. I'm going to close my eyes. And so first try to adopt a posture where you're sitting upright, because we're going to first be calling in the more fierce energy. So we want to be sitting upright, but we don't want to be stressed. So just make sure you're balanced. And also please make sure that both feet are touching the floor so that you're grounded to the earth. Okay, and so just maybe breathe, take a few breaths, breathe naturally. And so, again, what we're going to be doing first is calling up the fierce energy of compassion. So, one way to do that is by adopting a gesture, a physical type of touch that helps us feel strong and empowered. So, one way to do that might be to put a fist over your heart, right? You can try that. Kind of a fist of strength. Another one you can try is putting both hands over your energetic center, which is right below your rib cage and about 3 inches above your belly button. It's called the solar plexus. Right? It's by holding your energetic center that can also make you feel strong and empowered. Right, so choosing one of those options, or if you find another gesture helps you feel strong and empowered, go ahead and try that out. But use some physical touch. And then start to focus on your in-breath. Right, you have to breathe out as well, but really focus, put your attention on the in-breath. And as you breathe in, imagine that you're breathing in this fierce, young energy. You might even imagine that it's flowing up your spine, helping you to sit tall. You can leave your hands on your body or you can put them down, but they're always there when you need them to cultivate this fierceness, the support. All right, now just focus on breathing in, put your attention on your in-breath, and imagine that you're breathing in fierceness. This energy is flowing through your entire body. So notice how the breath energizes you. And if you want, you can also imagine, do a visualization. You might imagine that as you breathe in, your body is being filled with a bright white light. Okay, and now take a deep breath in and hold it for a few seconds. And then let go. And now we're going to call in some of the tender energy. So allow your body to be a little more relaxed. Okay, and adopt a gesture that feels more soothing. This could be maybe a gentle hand on your heart, right? Or maybe two hands on your face. So some physical gesture that feels soothing and feels comforting. So feeling that softness. And now start to focus on your out breath. Right. So with each exhalation, we're releasing, we're relaxing. Really softening with each out breath. Allowing this more gentle energy to nurture you. You may even want to visualize more of a soft golden light filling your body. And then take a big inhalation and hold it for a few seconds. And let it go. And so now what we want to do is we want to invite both this tender and this fierce energy to merge and to integrate. So imagining on the in-breath, right, you're breathing in this fierce yang energy. And on the out-breath, you're breathing out this tender yin energy. So in and out, flowing in and out, fierceness and tenderness. Try not to have just fierceness on the in and just tenderness on the out. Actually allow them to start mixing, to start mingling in your body. Right? You may even say to yourself, I invite my inner fierceness and tenderness to merge and integrate. And allowing the bright white light and the golden soft light to merge and integrate. Feeling your fierceness and your tenderness. allowing yourself to be whole and complete. And now I would invite you to call up or create an image of a being, of some symbol that really embodies both fierceness and tenderness. This may be someone you've known in your life. Maybe you had a grandmother who was both fierce and tender, or a friend who embodied both these qualities. Or maybe it's someone you admire that embodies both these qualities. You might want to call it their image. It could be something imaginary, like a warrior goddess, or an animal like a jaguar, really strong, but also feline, kind of tender energy as well. Just allow this image to form in your mind. And we're going to call this image your fierce friend. Right? Fierce and brave and strong, but also kind and friendly, your fierce friend. So just allow this image to form in your mind's eye. Imagining yourself with your fierce friend, right? So include yourself in the image. Letting yourself feel how protected it feels by their strength and their power. But also how cared for you feel by their tenderness. And your fierce friend may want to tell you something, right? Tell you something, perhaps about where you may be out of balance, right? Maybe there's an area of your life where you need to be more fierce, to stand up for yourself more, to draw a boundary. Or maybe your fierce friend wants to say you should be more tender with yourself, maybe to give yourself some of this kindness, this soft, gentle, nurturing energy. Or maybe both. So just listen. What is your fierce friend who's very wise, who knows you? What does your fierce friend have to say? And so realizing that this fierce friend is actually within you, right? So the power and strength you feel, and also the tenderness and softness you feel, this is actually a part of you. And you can call on this fierce friend whenever you need, right? This embodiment of this care and power to help you whenever you need to find balance in your life. Letting go of the image and just coming back to your breathing. Feeling your feet on the floor. Feeling your own presence. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Okay, so what I would love to do, Seema, if we can do this, is maybe first take some comments or questions about the practice, and then open it up to general questions about everything I said before the practice. Can we do that?
Evet, isterseniz şu ana kadar pratikle ilgili bir soru gelmemiş, farklı konularda gelmiş. Önce bu yaptığımız pratiği konuşalım. Var mı bir şey sormak isteyen? Hemen yazabilirsiniz bana ve yöneltebilirim hemen. Chat kısmından bana yazın lütfen. Bekliyorum.
Did you enjoy it? What was it like for you?
Kültürel olarak Kristin, bizim Türkiye'de insanlar az soru soruyor ama şimdi gelmeye başladı. Biraz geç soruyorlar. Bir kişiden şöyle bir soru var. Pratikle alakalı. Ben azılı dost kavramını tam idrak edemedim. Burada bana nasıl yardımcı olabilirsiniz diye bir soru var.
So, have you ever had a friend who really protected you? Maybe someone was insulting you, for instance, or talking about you behind your back, and they were just fierce. They were really protective. They protected you. That would be a fierce friend, someone who protects you.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had a friend who protected you? Hopefully.
Yeah. And somebody asks, birisi de şöyle sormuş, ben İngilizceye gitti kafam. Özel olmazsa eğer Kristin'in azılı şefkatli dostu kim? Onu merak etmişler. İlham vermesi için belki.
Well, so if you were to go into my meditation room, you would find two images on the wall. One is of a mother. Actually, it's an image of it's a Japanese image of a mother, and her pregnant belly has the earth on it, and she symbolizes for me that mother energy, kind of Mother Earth, right? That tender softness. But directly over my meditation cushion, I have an image of the Hindu goddess Kali, who I use as my image of fierceness. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her, but she's a very fierce warrior Hindu goddess who, and she's portrayed as holding like severed heads of people, but what she cuts away is illusion. What the fierceness is aimed at is the illusion of separation. And that's the image I use for fierceness.
Ve bazı yorumlar gelmiş. Son olarak belki pratikle ilgili onları paylaşabilirim. İçimdeki kaplan uyandı gibi hissettim. Ya da çok büyük bir fil gibi içsel geniş bir kapasite hissettim diyen var ama kaplanlar çoğunlukta. O yorumları da iletmek istedim. Öyle mesajlar çok gelmiş. Evet. Şimdi biraz daha genel sorulara geçelim mi Kristin? Ne dersin?
Yes, please.
Tamam. Şöyle bir soru var Lisa'dan. Öz-şefkatin aslen çocukluktaki koşullanmalara bağlı oluştuğunu ya da oluşmadığını düşünecek olursak, bununla alakalı daha problem ortadan çıkmadan çözebilelim diye eğitim sistemiyle alakalı, daha küçüklerle alakalı, belki MSC olarak, organizasyon olarak projeler, programlar var mı? Bunu birisi sormuş.
Right. So we just launched a program for educators, for teachers. We don't have a program yet, for instance, for school children. We are developing a program for children in general. We have one for teens, and we're working on developing one for children. Whether or not that gets in the schools, perhaps. I mean, it probably will eventually go there, but not currently. We're really busy. Pretty much, I think self-compassion is going to go everywhere mindfulness has gone, because really they're hand in hand. They kind of go together. So mindfulness, of course, is part of self-compassion, and self-compassion just adds in this explicit kindness in a way that's often not taught. So it comes out of mindfulness practice, but it's not explicit. So I think everywhere that mindfulness has gone, which is everywhere, sports, school, business, self-compassion will follow. We're about 15 years behind mindfulness. So we'll catch up eventually.
Evet. O zaman tam da buradan o 15 yılı kapatacağız dilerim Kristin hep beraber. Bütün dünyada. Bir de şöyle bir soru var. Mindfulness pratiği olmayan biri öz-şefkat çalışabilir mi? Bilişsel olarak öğrenilebilecek bir şey midir bu?
So not cognition alone, but one of the great things about self-compassion practice, it's also true for mindfulness practice, but usually to teach mindfulness, especially to go deep with mindfulness, it's hard to do it without meditation. It's possible, but most mindfulness training programs teach meditation because you kind of need to quiet your mind to be able to cultivate this state of mindfulness. You can teach self-compassion without any meditation. In fact, in our research on the Mindful Self-Compassion program, those people who never did the meditations in their practice, they learned it in the class, but they never did it, they gained just as much self-compassion as those who did meditation. And so, for instance, we just created a program for healthcare workers that has no meditation. Because what we are hearing from healthcare workers is, I don't have time to meditate. I don't want to learn how to meditate. And so because self-compassion, in a way, it's simpler. Most of us like mindfulness. What's mindfulness? But kindness, oh yeah, I've experienced that, at least with others. I've had friends be kind and supportive to me. I've been kind and supportive to my friends. It's kind of more part of our everyday life. So it's actually easier, in my opinion, it's actually easier to access. And the fact that it doesn't require meditation is very good, because some people don't like to meditate or they have trouble meditating. So, put it this way, if you have a prior mindfulness practice, it makes it easier to learn self-compassion. But also there's research that shows if you teach people a little bit of self-compassion before you teach them, like mindfulness meditation, it actually helps them because when their mind's wandering, they're kind to themselves. So they really support each other. I don't think one necessarily has to come first. And by the way, just also practicing self-compassion increases mindfulness, and practicing mindfulness increases self-compassion. So they go together.
Şöyle bir soru var pratiğe yönelik. Bu zamana kadar sınır koyan biri olarak algılanmıyorum diyelim ki çevremde. Fierce şefkati uygulamaya başladığımda ilk adımlarımı nasıl ayarlamalıyım sosyal çevremde? Ne önerirsiniz?
Well, it's really going to depend. I would, those qualities of asking, is this going to help or harm, right? So in other words, so if you're afraid of putting up a boundary, by the way, when you put up a boundary, it is true that people may like you less. You have to be willing to accept that. If people only like you because you're giving to them and doing what they want, by putting up a boundary, they actually may not like it. But what you do with self-compassion, first of all, the way you do it, if you do it rudely, well, of course they aren't going to like it. But if you do it with kindness, if you explain, I'm sorry, this is really important to me, I'll maybe help you another time, but right now, this is what I need. You have to be willing to accept that they may not like that. So you start to give yourself the approval that the other person may not be able to give you. Because in a way, what's happened, especially for women, is the people only value us if we're doing what they want us to do. And if we're dependent on their approval and doing what they want us to do, then we'll just never change, and we'll just be in the same position. We'll just be subordinate. So we have to learn to be able to say, I would love to help you, but I really can't. And if other people don't like you, well, I'm sorry, but at least I like myself. So you kind of start to change your source of approval from coming inside as opposed to outside, right? But, again, everyone's different. It depends a lot on the situation. You don't want to cause harm. You don't want to be rude. But you have to be brave. So bravery is a really important part of fierce self-compassion. You have to be brave, and you have to be willing to accept the fact that other people aren't going to like it, because they really probably prefer you to spend all your time and energy meeting their needs. They don't want you to meet your own needs. You have to want to meet your own needs and be willing to stand up for yourself and just to say, I'm sorry, this is the way it is. This is what I need. That makes sense? It's a little scary. That's why we need the bravery. But you have to ask yourself, am I happy the way I am? Is the current situation working for me? If it is, it's not a problem. Don't worry about it. But if it's not, who's going to make you happy? Other people are not going to make you happy. You're the only one who can really make yourself happy by standing up for what you need, what you know is right, by drawing your boundaries. But again, it's not instead of meeting other people's needs, it's in addition to. I think oftentimes when people, they kind of go to one extreme or the other at first, and that's okay. Give yourself compassion for that. You will get it wrong. You probably will get it wrong the first few times you try. That's okay. Have compassion for yourself. It's something new. You'll get it wrong. And hopefully when you get it wrong, you can figure out, okay, well, that didn't work so well. What can I learn from this situation? Give yourself compassion for getting it wrong, and then try again. And eventually you'll find what works for you, your own personality, what works for your family, what works for your job, whatever it is you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. Hopefully. Does that make sense? Okay, good.
Çok kıymetli gerçekten. Bir soru var. Çok fazla farklı şekillerde sorulmuş ama hep aynı temanın etrafında dönüyor. O da reparenting. Demişler ki psikologların
Yes.
kullandığı reparenting kavramıyla öz şefkat nasıl birleşir ve de
Yes.
aynı sorunun yine bir versiyonları olarak eğer çocukken çok sertçe motive olmaya alıştıysak gerçekten öz şefkatle bunu dönüştürmemiz, reparenting gibi bir şey mi oluyor?
Yeah.
Bu gibi çok sorular var.
Oh, yeah. So absolutely. I mean, self-compassion in many ways, it is a type of reparenting. I mean, I often use, and I know Chris Germer and I use that term because what you're doing is you're giving yourself what you need, just like you're being your own parent. And remember, parents aren't just indulgent. Sometimes they're soft and tender, but sometimes parents, they need to be mama bear, right? We need both energies to be a good parent. And so if your parents were really loving and nurturing and protective, it's going to be, just face it, it's going to be easier for you to be self-compassionate as an adult. It's but even if your parents were really good parents, you still might lack self-compassion just because of culture, just because of the pressures of society. So you still may need to learn how to be self-compassionate, but it's going to be easier for you. If your parents were harsh, really harsh, or they were abusive, or they weren't tender, or maybe they didn't protect you, right? They weren't fierce enough in protecting you. It's going to be harder for you as an adult. And in fact, sometimes it can actually even start to be scary, to try to give yourself what you didn't have. Sometimes what happens is if you try to meet your needs, immediately you think of how your parents didn't meet your needs. You probably know this. I'm sure if you took Seema's course, you know this. There's a term for this, backdraft. It can actually be scary to give yourself compassion. But what the research shows quite clearly, and this is really the good news, is that people can learn to give themselves what they need, even if their parents didn't give them what they needed. Right. And what we're finding now is effective therapy. What effective therapy is helping people to be more self-compassionate and to meet their own needs. So it may take longer. The process may be slower. The road may be bumpier, but you can get there. I mean, I must say, when I first started researching self-compassion, actually, when I met Chris Germer and he said, you really need to teach people how to be more self-compassionate, I didn't really know how easy or hard that would be. And I've just been so surprised by the fact that this is something you can do. People can learn it, especially with a little bit of help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, so being a good parent to yourself, it's really what it is. And then if you want, you can expand it. You can talk about parenting your inner child, and you can do parts work, which is also very helpful, where you think of your inner child and your older adult self and your fierce part and your tender part. And, it can also be practiced that way in a very effective manner. I'm not going to go into that. It's too complicated, but yeah.
Belki son bir soru, önemli bir soru bizim için. Çünkü School of Compassion olarak biz de STK'larla çalışıyoruz, onları desteklemeye çalışıyoruz. Bu şekilde çalışan kişiler var aramızda, onlardan soru gelmiş. Bizim ülkemizde çok yüksek kadın cinayetleri ve dezavantajlı gruplar var, çok travma
I'm sorry,
var.
what?
Çevirmenlerimizden. Hı. Travma çok yüksek. Dolayısıyla travmayla, bu dünyanın acısıyla birinci elden temas eden NGO çalışanları için şefkat yaklaşımı nasıl yardımcı olabilir? Bu çok kıymetli bir soru bence.
They will not be able to do their work without self-compassion. I can tell you right now. When you are helping people who are traumatized, you experience their trauma. And if you do not give yourself compassion for your trauma, you'll burn out. The research is very clear on this. You need to give yourself compassion. And by the way, it's not just self-care. It's not like, make sure you get some rest, make sure you eat well. You don't have time. You're on the front lines. So what needs to happen is, what's happening is empathic resonance. When we're with someone who's feeling pain, our brains are actually experiencing their pain through our mirror neurons. And so in the moment, we are feeling their pain. You know, when you're, so for instance, I taught this to hospital workers who are dealing with like sick and dying children. When you're at the bedside, when you're with the really traumatic system, when you're feeling totally overwhelmed, from my experience, you actually have to first tend to yourself, even before you have any mental space to tend to other people. You need to say to yourself, this is so overwhelming. This is so hard. You need to give yourself compassion. In this case, so you, again, need tender and fierce self-compassion. Tender self-compassion is soothing and comforting yourself for how hard it is. Fierce self-compassion may look like, okay, maybe I actually need to draw some boundaries. Maybe that's a little too much for me. Maybe I can't do everything I would like to do. I need to pace myself in a way that's going to be realistic for me. But the good news is when you give yourself compassion for what's called vicarious trauma, right? The trauma of someone else, empathic resonance goes both ways. So when you're helping someone who's in the, when they can resonate with your compassionate mind state. In other words, when we're self-compassionate, we're also helping others, especially if we are compassionate out loud and we model self-compassion, then people can see our model and they can also resonate with our more loving, connected mind state internally. So it helps not only you, it also helps the person you're helping. And again, I would love to see this taught in NGOs, in medical schools, anyone who works with trauma. I think it's a necessity. I think it's just as essential as learning how to, do all the other bits of your job, because without it, you just will not be able to last. Self-compassion is what gives you the strength. Other things as well. It's not the only thing, but it's an essential ingredient.
Evet. Daha çok fazla yorum var ama onları ve soruları artık söylemeyeceğim. Yorumlarda çok fazla Şefkat'in yumuşak, yin tarafını biliyordum ama bu tarafta biraz açtığımız için çok mutluyum diyenler var. Biz de hakikaten bunu amaçlamıştık. O yüzden çok çok teşekkür ediyoruz Kristin. Ve kapanış için Şefkat'in ruhunu iyi verdiğini düşündüğümüz bir şiir var. Hem Kristin'e hediye olarak, ekip olarak onu okumak istiyorum onların adına. Önce 2 tane şahane çevirmenimiz Bilge Hanım ve Halil Bey, çok çok teşekkür ediyorum onlara. Fatih Bey yardımcı oldu ve okul ekibimizden Merve. Hepinizin ellerine sağlık.
I thank you also.
Yeah. Okay, then poem first. Okay. Small poem. Reddet düşmeyi. Reddedemiyorsan düşmeyi, reddet yerde kalmayı. Reddedemiyorsan yerde kalmayı, yükselt kalbini cennete. Yalvar doldurulsun diye. Yalvar doldurulsun diye. Aç bir dilenci gibi. İtilebilirsin, engellenebilir ayağa kalkman. Ama kimse engelleyemez kalbinin cennete yükselişini senin dışında. ızdırabın ortasıdır her şeyin netleştiği yer. Çıkmaz bundan iyi bir şey diyen henüz dinlememiştir. Clarissa Pinkola Estes'ten her zaman okuduğumuz bir şiir bizim buralarda. Onu okumak istedik ve tekrar çok çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Büyük bir minnetle bu oturumu kapatacağız.
Very beautiful. Thank you. And thank you all of you who are doing such good work in the world as well. I'm feel very honored to be able to help in any way I can.
Thank you Kristin. Şimdi herkes için Kristin'e veda ediyoruz. See you Kristin and just have a good day.
Bye.
Morning in the US.
Bye.
Yeah. Goodbye. Şimdi geri kalan kişiler için ben biraz daha buradayım. Çevirmenlerimize tekrar teşekkür ediyorum. Halil Bey ile Bilge Hanım'a. Onlarla herhangi bir şeyimiz kalmadı. Sizlerin çok eline sağlık. Çok teşekkürler. Eğer ki şimdi hem topluluğumuzdan birileri var hem de yeni birileri var. Hani benim sorum cevaplanmadı, size sorayım veya şöyle bir şey dillendirmek istiyorum diyenler varsa şöyle bir 15 dakika kadar daha ben burada olayım istiyorum. Ki paylaşım veya soru sormak isteyenlere alan olması için. Ayrılanlara da şimdiden iyi geceler ve aramızda olduğunuz için çok teşekkürler diyorum. Süremizi iyi kullanmak için Kristin'le seslerimizi açıp soru sorma falan yapamadık. Ama belki dillendirmek istersiniz. O yüzden şimdi size söz vereceğim. Evet. Elini kaldıran var. Seçkin Aydın Kınacı. Size bağlanalım. Sesinizi açabilirsiniz. Evet.
Sanırım açıldı. İyi akşamlar herkese. Çok teşekkürler öncelikle böyle biriyle bizi buluşturduğunuz için. Çok güzel bir yayındı. Benim sorum şöyleydi. Hani geçmişteki ifade edemediğimiz öfkeler vesaire var. Birçoğumuzda var. Acaba öz şefkat çalışmaları bu geçmişteki öfkelerle veya kızgınlıklarla içimizde kalan, onlarla yüzleştiğimizde fayda sağlar mı? Onu öğrenmek istiyorum hocam.
Çok sağ olun Seçkin Hanım. Buna şöyle cevap vereceğim çok kısaca. Geçmiş öfke hissediyorsak geçmemiştir. Bu kadar. Aslında çok basit. Geçmiş öfke hissediyorsak geçmedi ve burada olan herhangi bir şeye biz şefkat yaklaşımında yokmuş gibi yapmıyoruz. Bizim için çok kritik ve bugünkü anlattığı ve yaptırdığı uygulamada da vurguladığı gibi Kristin'in yin ile yangının şefkatin, yani zorlayıcı duygularımızla, mesela öfkemizle, sizin örneğinizde öfkemizle, sükunetle, büyük bir güçle ve cesaretle kalmak şefkatin bir parçası. Öte yandan yeni öfke nasıl yaratmam diye sormak. Yeni öfke nasıl yaratmam? Daha az öfkelenebileceğim hayat koşullarına nasıl yatırım yapabilirim? Bu da bence bir aktif şefkat sorusu. Bunların üzerinde aktif olarak çalışıyoruz şefkatte. Geçmişten gelen öfke ise henüz geçmeyen öfke, orada biraz şefkatin yin tarafını devreye sokacağız. Dolayısıyla o zorlayıcı duygularla kalmayı, acıyla kalma kapasitemizi biraz artıracağız ve üzerinde çalışacağız. Ama tabii ki öğrencilerim yakından biliyorlar. Yani her şeyin çözümü şefkat ya da öz şefkat çalışın harika gibi bir yerde elbette değiliz. Gerekiyorsa belki daha farklı bireysel bir sürece girmek, terapi, ama şefkat yaklaşımıyla evet yakından alakalı öfke konusu. Öfke zaten Budist temellerinde şefkat öfkenin ilacı olarak nitelendiriliyor. Dharma köklerinde öyledir. Şefkati zihnimiz daha az öfke ve art niyet olarak Türkçe'ye çevirebiliriz. Öfke, art niyet, bizi bu yakan, bir başkasına hissettiğimiz ama kendi kendimizi yakan, zehir gibi olan şeyler üzerinde çalışmak için aslında kadim bilgelikte öyledir şefkatin yeri. Evet, çok sağ olun ses ettiğiniz için. Şimdi başka elini kaldıran Derya Balyan. Evet, buyurun.
Teşekkürler söz verdiğiniz için, program için. Benim sorum son zamanlarda keşfettiğim, farkına vardığım yerleşik yanlış bir kök inancım olduğu ve genelde yaşadığım kötü deneyimlerin bununla oluşan temellerden geldiği. Hani farkına varabildim ama nasıl çözeceğim konusunda çok şeyim yok. Acaba öz şefkat buna yardımcı olabilir mi ve nasıl olur?
Bu biraz Derya Hanım, ses ettiğiniz için çok teşekkürler ama bu büyük bir grupta çok cevaplamayı tercih etmeyeceğimiz bir soru. Çünkü şefkatte biz en başta neyi çalışıyoruz biliyor musunuz? Şefkatli bir kültürde eğitimler için buluştuğumuzda neyin ne kadar uzmanı olursak olalım, örneğin Kristin dünyaca ünlü uzman, kimsenin hayatının bağlamı olmadığımızı kendimize hatırlatıyoruz. Şefkatli bir kültür yaratma vizyonundayız dedim ya. Onun bir parçası. O yüzden böyle soruları yanıtlamak, böyle bu kadarcık az bilgiyle sanki bir dart şeyine karşımızda böyle ok atıyormuşuz gibi oluyor. Ne kadar hizmet edebilir bilmiyorum. Yani az önceki soru gibi evet muhakkak hizmet edebilir ama bu kapsamda şefkatli bir yerden özel bir yorum çok yapmamayı seçeceğim. Dikkatli olmam gerektiği için. Olur mu?
Teşekkürler. Olur tabii.
Sağ olun. Sağ olun. Evet. Ebrar, madem kitabın çevirmenini de duyalım.
Sadece teşekkür etmek istiyorum. Ben bir sene kadar oldu ve senin çalışmalarınla tanıştım bu alanla. Arada işte terapiler, analizler, bir sürü şeylere bakmalar ama bu hem çok güçlü bir şey hem de şefkatli kültür diye anlattığın şey, öğretmeye gayret ettiğin şeyin çok anlamlı ve değerli olduğunu düşünüyorum. Okuldaki herkesin bu oluşturduğun şeyin adım adım emekle yarattığın en baştan beri böyle büyüyüp serpişini izlemek benim için çok muhteşem. Hem kişisel olarak çok şey öğrendim ve faydalandım. Hem de sen ne kadar tevazuyla yaklaşsan da bence dünya için de çok anlamlı. Yaşadığımız bütün bu gündem, içinden geçtiğimiz şeyler için de çok anlamlı. Kristin'le tanışmak çok heyecanlıydı ama bu heyecanın tohumunu atan bütün o çalışmalar için ben sana teşekkür ederim ve ekibindeki herkese çok sevgiler. Sadece bunu söylemek için çok duygulandım. Çok güzel bir geceydi.
Evet, güzeldi. Ben de sonradan tekrar kayıttan izleyeceğim. Çünkü biraz moderasyon yaptığım için arkadaşlar sorulara bakıyorum. Bir taraftan pratiği yaparken böyle gözüm açık buradan.
Tamam, hiçbir takılma, hiçbir şey olmadan çok güzeldi. Çok teşekkürler her birinize.
Evet, çok teşekkürler Ebrar, Candan, sana da. Dolunay Uğur, size bağlanalım. Buyurun.
Okay. Merhaba Sema Hanım, teşekkürler ilk önce bunun için. Sizin aktif öz şefkatinize de katılmıştım ve o zaman da hani denge üzerine çok konuşamamıştık. Şimdi de biraz değindik ama biraz yin ve yang dengesinin üzerine konuşabilir miyiz? Yani mesela hani yara olduğunda tender self compassion ya da motive ve sınır çizmekte hani aktif olduğunu konuştuk. Ama eğer ki işimiz gün be gün, saat be saat bu ikisinin dengesine bağlıysa, mesela Kristin hani bu PhD tezi yazma örneği verdi. Ben de hani o yoldan geçtiğim için söylüyorum. Hani kendi böyle hani kafamızın içindeki kritikle savaştığımızda ya da eğer ki vasat olma korkusu, sizin ve Estes'in dediğiniz gibi vasat olma korkusuyla savaştığımızda kendimize tender hani o yin şeyi verirken aynı zamanda yazma işinin kendisi motive olmayı gerektiriyor. O zaman da aktife ve bununla her saat uğraşan böyle bir işimiz olduğunda hani bunun dengesini nasıl yapacağız? Saat be saat, gün be gün. Teşekkür ederim.
Evet. Bu söylediğiniz, siz de sağ olun ses ettiğiniz için, söylediğiniz hem yaratıcı işler yapan akademik çalışmalar hem de bakım verme mesleklerinde olanlar, psikologlar, ruh sağlığı uzmanları ve konuştuğumuz konu olan STK'larda çalışan kişiler için de geçerli. İki grup için biraz farklı dinamikler söz konusu ama ben daha çok sizin sorduğunuz yerden kısaca yanıtlamaya çalışacağım. Şimdi elbette öncelikle bizim belli bir süre şefkat çalıştıktan sonra o herhangi bir şeyi yaparken bizi böyle alttan alta açıkçası dürtükleyen o acımasız iç sesimizde ciddi bir kısılma ve mükemmeliyetçiliğimizde ciddi bir azalma zaten oluyor. Yani biz her dakika işte yang şefkat o yüzden önemli. Şu soruyu sormalıyız. Öncelikle acımasız iç sesim üzerinde sahici bir emek vermeye belli bir süre biraz adanabilir miyim? Çünkü emek gerektiriyor ve pratik gerektiriyor. Sadece entelektüel öğrenmeyle olmuyor. Biraz Kristin de açıkladı, elbette öyle tarafları da var. Ama sahici bir değişimin kişisel fikrim pratiksiz olamayacağı kanaatindeyim. Oraya biraz emek verdikten sonra artık her eyleme geçmek istediğimizde içimizde bizi yiyip bitiren bir acımasız iç sesle bir kere mücadele etmiyoruz. Bunu bir kenara koymak isterim. Ama buraya adanmış bir emek gerektirdiğini düşünüyorum. Doğru teknik, doğru anlayış ve sürekliliğin gücü burada. Gerçekten o suyun gücü gibi şefkatin gücü, yani damlaya damlaya kayanın bile değiştiği yerden. Diğer bir noktada dengesiyle alakalı, yani dengesinin içinde burada biraz yin tarafa şimdi değinmiş oldum birinci kısmında. Dengesiyle ilgili de şunu söylemek istiyorum. Her ikisini sürekli uygulamamız gereken bir işte içsel sükunetin ve içsel liderliğin, yani kendimizi an be an görebilir olma, gözlemleyebilir olma becerimizin çok önemli olduğunu düşünüyorum. Burada da evet, şefkatle mindfulness zaten tam olarak birbirinden aslında bir yandan ayrılamaz. Ama diğer yandan beynimizde içsel liderlik kulemiz vardır. Medial prefrontal korteks ve orasının düzenli nefes, çok temel, basit, sade meditasyon pratiğiyle geliştiğini biliyoruz. Çünkü interocepsiyon dediğimiz iç alan farkındalığımız artıyor. Biz içeriden gelen geri bildirimleri, iç sesleri, ne olup bittiğini çok net bir şekilde duyabilmeye başlıyoruz. Çünkü normalde bedenimizden kopuk oluyoruz. Daha kafamızda yaşadığımız bir yerde oluyoruz. Modern hayatta çoğumuz bedenler travmatize olduğu için disosiye olma eğilimindeyiz. O yüzden önce kendimizi bedene indiriyoruz. Dolayısıyla bu gözlemleme ve içsel liderlikle beraber insanda artık tanımlanamayan, hani UFO gibi, UFO Unidentified Flying Object ya, içimizde tanımlanamayan bir takım sesler, karmaşa ya da bize nasılsın denildiğinde bilmiyorum, iyiyim, kötüyüm, canım sıkkın galibadan çok daha geniş bir duygular yelpazesini, çok daha geniş bir haller yelpazesini görebiliyor ve dillendirebiliyor halde oluyoruz. Bütün bunlar bizi rahatlatıyor. Yani bu söylediklerim bile bence dengeye dair. Duygusal okuryazarlığımı arttıracağım ve içsel liderliğimi arttıracağım ki oturduğumda an be an ne hissediyorum, ne oluyor onlara bakabileceğim. Denge söz konusu olduğunda da bu sükunet hali, equanimity tavrı diyoruz ona. İçsel dinginlik, yani güzel olan şeylere çok yapışmama, bizim için rahatsız edici olandan da ölesiye kaçmama diyebileceğimiz büyük bir zihin ve içsel dinginlik şefkatin konularından bir tanesi. Equanimity olmadan, tam Türkçesi yok o yüzden equanimity diye kullanıyorum. Equanimity olmadan şefkat çalışamıyoruz. Şefkat olmadan da equanimity çok donuk ve eksik kalıyor. Bunlar ikisi 4 ölçülemezler denir Budist köklerinde. Brahma Viharas onların ikisidir. Dolayısıyla beraber çalışıyoruz diyeyim. İsterseniz son bir kişiye daha söz verelim. Olabildiğince eğitimlerden yüzünü tanımadığım yeni kişilere biraz söz vermeye çalıştım ama dengeli, biraz tanıdık, biraz tanımadık. Yine öyle yapmaya çalışayım diyorum. Bir bakıyorum. Aslında az da kalmış elleriniz. Şöyle yapalım. Meliha Mehtap Kılıç, size bağlanalım. Evet.
Evet, iyi akşamlar. Öncelikle eğitim için çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Biz şefkat kısmını biliyorduk ama sert şefkat kısmı için benim için uyandırıcı oldu. Yani buna hakkım olduğunu tekrar duymak güzeldi. Fakat toplumda bu kadar kabul edilemezken bunu güçlü tutmayı tek başımıza başarmak nasıl olacak? Bu benim için bir soru işareti. Yani burada iç motivasyonumuzu sağlayacak, kuvvetli tutacak ne bulabiliriz? Bir imge mi? Yani bilemiyorum, bir grup mu? İlk önce bunu merak ettim. Burada nereden destek alabileceğim arayışına girdim şimdi. Çünkü şu anda içimde böyle bir kuvvet yok ve bu kuvvetin oluşması için sanki önce dıştan bir motivasyon gerekiyormuş gibime geliyor. Belki bu da yanlıştır, bunu da bilemiyorum. Çünkü sorguladığımız birçok doğru sonradan yanlış çıkıyor. Bir de korku, saldırı algılama anında beynimiz korkuyor, açtığı zaman bilinç çok devre dışı kalıyor. Peki bu bilinç devre dışı kaldığı zaman savaş, kaç ya da don yapıyoruz. Biz bu savaş, kaç ya da don, ben genelde ya donarım ya da ölümüne savaşırım. Şimdi buradaki dengeyi sağlamak için orada o bilinç düzeyinde kalmak bana çok zor geliyor. Çok güzel ve çok zor geliyor. Bunu o anda o bilinçte kalmayı nasıl sağlayabileceğim? Yani bu da pratiklerle olacaktır belki ama yani çok basit olaylarda bile bu geniş bakış açısını, o anda geniş bakmayı, olayın tümünü görmeyi, aslında şahsımı ilgilendiren bir şey olmadığını, olayın altındaki temeli görmek nasıl olacak onu çok deneyimlemek istiyorum ve bunu nasıl yapabileceğimi bilmiyorum. Belki bir örnek açıklayabilirsiniz. Bunu merak ediyorum.
Sağ olun size ses ettiğiniz için. 2 soru var. İkincisi benim için daha net ama birincisinde dediniz ki toplum kabul etmiyorsa burada şeyi bir ayırt etmeye ihtiyacım var. Yani daha iyi anlamaya sizi. Toplum beni kimliğimden, görünüşümden, olduğum şeyden dolayı kabul etmezken mi demek istediniz? Yoksa
Yok,
toplum hayır dememe, sınır çizmeme kabul etmezken bir kadın olarak.
Aynen. Evet, aynen böyle. Çünkü ben bir öğretmenim ve toplumla o kadar içe yaşıyorum ki bazı şeyleri gerçekten kadın olduğum için kabul ettirmek çok daha zor oluyor. Evet. Erkek öğretmen arkadaşlarıma baktığım zaman çok daha kolay olan şeyler benim için o kadar zor oluyor ki ilk önce insanlarla güreşip onları yenmem, sırtını bir yere getirmem, sonra beni kabul etmelerini sağlayabiliyorum ama yani bu da çok yorucu bir şey.
Evet. Sizi şimdi anladım. Evet.
Evet.
Şimdi tabii ki bu konu da uzun ama toparlayabildiğim kadarıyla ikisine de kompakt cevaplar vermeye çalışacağım. Birinci sorunuz için sesimizi geri alacağız. Ben bir şiir çevirdim Clarissa Estes'ten, sesini geri al diye. Aynı şeyi söylüyoruz dediğinde biri söyle, aynı şeyi söylemiyoruz. Sorgulama, sadece inan dediğinde biri sorguluyorum ve kendi gerçeğime inanıyorum diye başlıyor ve böyle gidiyor. Ve şöyle de bitiyor. Biz kız kardeşlerimize, annelerimize, babalarımıza ve çocuklarımıza da böyle olmanın yolunu öğretiyoruz diyor. Şimdi maalesef bu webinarı zaten özellikle bilhassa bu konuda yapmak istememin sebebi Kristin'le bu konu. Çünkü yani genel olarak gender rollerden bahsetti, cinsiyet gibi bütün dünyada böyleyken
Evet.
Türkiye özelinde kadın olmanın üzerinde bazı kültürler gibi yalnız değiliz yani bir tek Türkiye'de böyle değil ama ekstra bir şey var. Üzerine kültürel olarak bizim kadın ve erkekten bağımsız olarak da açıkçası sınırlarla aramız pek iyi değil. Ben bunu eğitim gruplarına da çok konuşuyorum.
Maalesef.
Bunların aynısını birebir de ben de yaşıyorum. Sınır burada Kristin'in söylediklerinin üzerine o güzel açıklamalar yaptı bu konuda. Ben de şunu demek istiyorum. Bizim sınır çizebilmek, hayır diyebilmek, sesimizi geri alabilmek için ben bu konuya çok meraklı biriyim. Bunların üzerine yoğun, büyük eğitimler veriyorum. Bizim sevilmemeyi göze almayı, dolayısıyla gerçek öz değerimizle bağlantıda ben nasıl bir varlığım sorusuna hakiki bir cevap bulabildiğimiz bir hayat yaşamaya ihtiyacımız var. Çünkü öz değerimiz çok çatlaksa, biz nasıl bir varlık olduğumuzu bilmiyorsak, varlığımızın daha derin temaslarıyla hiç temas etmediysek, o zaman açıkçası bu değer bulma ve sevilme durumu, sevilme ihtiyacımız hep var. Ama dışarıdan Clarissa Estes buna kötü pazarlık diyor. Bu kötü pazarlıkları yapmaya devam ederiz. İçsel bir değerlilik duygusu, dolayısıyla herhangi birinin bana verdiği ama yine de değerlilik duygum var. Yine de sınır çizdiğimde sevilmeyeceğim, like edilmeyeceğim ve ötekinin gözünde ben. Bakın şefkatle ötekinin gözünde ben konusu çok yakından alakalı. Ötekinin gözünde ben fikirlerimizden özgürleşmeden bazı insanların bizi sevmeyeceğini, kaba bulacağını, hoşlanmayacağını, bu yaptığımızdan dolayı Kristin'in dediği gibi yani tabii ki insanlar tercih ediyor sürekli itaat edilmesini ve onların ihtiyaçlarının karşılanmasını tercih eden insanlar çok diyelim. Dolayısıyla biraz buralara değiyor. Sadece başlık olarak söyleyebiliyorum. Bence geniş bir konu.
Evet.
Bir ikincisiyle alakalı da şunu söyleyeceğim. Bilinç devre dışı kaldığında korku, sinir sistemi falan dediniz. Şimdi orada sinir sistemimizin fazlarını bilmeye ihtiyacımız var. Bizim sinir sistemimiz bir memeli olduğumuz için 3 ana fazı var. Ve bunların bir tanesinde biz kaostayız, ben yapamıyorumdayız. Orada işte algımız daralır, tünel vizyonuna gireriz, değerlendirmemiz azalır, olguları oldukları gibi görmekten ve sağlıklı bir şekilde değerlendirmekten kesinlikle uzaklaşırız. Burası bizim kaos, yapamıyorum durumuna girdiğimiz yerdir. Kırmızıyla onu eğitimlerde anlatıyorum. Diğer bir fazı sinir sistemimizin, sizin savaş kaç don dediğiniz yer kırmızı. Diğer bir fazı bizim sağlıklı bir benimizin olduğu, bir egomuzun olduğu, benim Sema olduğum, Sema Demirkan olduğum yerler. Onu severim, bunu sevmem, şunu tercih ederim, bunu etmem. Kendimi dünyanın kalanından ayırdığım ve buranın cümlesi de ben yapabiliyorumdur. Bir diğer sinir sistemimizin fazı ise bu kadar kuvvetli ayrımlara, sevilen, sevilmeyen şeylere, tercihlere ihtiyaç duymadığımız ve bir ben olmadığımız, daha özümüzü deneyimlediğimiz, işte o insan olarak ben nasıl bir varlığımın cevabını deneyimlediğimiz yerdir sinir sistemimizde. Çoğu insan için bugün günümüzde modern hayatta sinir sistemimizin bu bahsettiğim 3. fazı pek deneyimlenemiyor. Buna ancak gerçekten pratiklerle erişiyoruz. Çoğu insan kırmızı dediğim yer ve ego ile ben o sinir sisteminin 2 fazında takılı hayatlar yaşıyor. Şefkatin güzelliği şurada. Çabuk toparlayacağım, daha detayına giremeyeceğim ama şefkatin güzelliği hem biz kaostayken, kırmızıdayken yani savaş kaç dondayken memeli bakım verme sistemini aktive ettiği için hem bize yardımcı olması hem de diğer aşamalarda şefkatle alakalı pratiklerin olması ve yine bize dokunabiliyor olması. Burası bana göre Yani bu herhangi bir kitaptan okuduğum bir şey değil, benim görüşüm. Burası şefkatin mucizesi olan yerdir. Çünkü örneğin şükretmek, kaos derken bize iyi gelmez. Bilimsel araştırmalar onu gösteriyor. Zorla, yani bana küfür edilmiş gibi hissediyorum. Kaos içindeyken biri haline şükret, senden daha kötü durumda insanlar var dediğinde.
Kesinlikle
Ama
doğru.
şefkat yaklaşımı çok farklı bir yerden bize sinir sistemimiz her 3 fazdayken de yardımcı olabiliyor. Evet, bayağı uzun oldu sizin soru ve cevabınız. Hepinize çok teşekkür ederim. Dilerim bir parça tat verebilmişizdir. Diğer elini kaldıranlardan öğrenciler ve normalde tanıştığımız insanlar var. Onlarla yine karşılaşırız mezun topluluklarında diye düşünüyorum. Chat'i de diliyorum sonra okuyabileceğim. Hepinize çok teşekkürler. Ayaklarınıza sağlık. Bugünlük fazla uzatmayacağım. Normalde çok uzatıyoruz ama bugün profesyonel bir hostumuz da var. Fatih Bey var. Onun da vaktinden daha fazla almak istemiyorum. O nedenle burada yavaşça keseceğim. Dilerseniz kapatırken sesinizi açın. Siz de bana sesinizi duyurun ve öyle iyi akşamlar diyelim.
İyi akşamlar herkese.
İyi akşamlar.
İyi akşamlar Sema Hanım. Hoşçakalın.
İyi akşamlar.
İyi akşamlar.
Teşekkür ederim.
Sağ olun.